Hello, my name is Xiaodong Yue. I'm a professor at Captain Normal University. Welcome to my course on skills for writing and publishing academic papers in English. Today's topic is on selecting a journal and submitting a paper. Before we start our talk, let's see the vocabulary or the words for this talk. I'll do you a favor. Please read after me to familiarize your ear for the terms, for the words, for the vocabulary I'll mention in this talk. Are you ready? Read after me. Abstract, abstract. Introduction, introduction. Method, method. Results, results. Discussion, discussion. Conclusion, conclusion. References, references. Footnote, footnote. Endnote, endnote. Guideline, guideline. Objectivity, objectivity. Selectivity, selectivity. Keywords, keywords. Background, background. Abbreviations, abbreviations. Declarations, declarations. Framework, framework. Revise, revise. Literature, literature. Obscure jargon, obscure jargon. Elaborate, elaborate. Repetition, repetition. Word limit, word limit. Main elements, main elements. Standard formatting requirement, standard formatting requirement. Heading, heading. Statement, statement. Significance, significance. Implications, implications. The questions are, first, did you submit manuscripts journals? Did you get rejections from your submissions? Did you know reasons for rejecting your manuscripts? Did you resubmit your rejected manuscripts to other journals? Let's keep these 4 questions in mind and let's look at today's topic. The first thing I want to address is what is important for paper submission. Now, you have done your writing, you have a paper ready, it's called manuscript. What next? Think about a journal. Before submitting a paper to an academic journal, you need to keep this in mind. First, each journal has its own editorial policy and guidelines for submission. It could be APA, AMA, or Chicago. Second, make sure you have read them and followed the guidelines strictly. 3, submit your paper according to the journal's instructions after you have prepared your manuscript or paper ready. And 4th, different journals have different rules about number of copies of papers to submit. Okay? How figures and tables should be shown and whether to include supplementary materials. Even now, it's all online submission, but some journals still keep the tradition of asking you to give hard copies. So you have to read the instructions for submission. Now here is an example of the guideline for submission. Let's have a look. Format. Please review the manuscript carefully before submitting it. The text should be in final form when it is sent to the publisher. you should submit 2 hard copies and 1 electronic copy of the final complete manuscript. The hard copy of the final manuscript should be typed or laser printed double-spaced with a 1 margin on all sides on good quality white bound 8.5 times 11 paper. Now I don't have to read the rest, but just to give you an example, you want to make sure this is the format. The take-home message is you don't want to upset the editor with your improperly presented paper. And it's a stupid mistake for not having followed the guidelines. Okay, the next, I want to tell you the process of reviewing a manuscript. The first is having an initial review. The editor does an initial reading to determine whether the subject matter and the research of the manuscript is appropriate for the journal, and usually done within 1 week. But if your paper is that badly written, it could be done in 1 hour, in 1 minute, because everything's so bad. Immediate reply. And of course, in the platform, your paper is not suitable for our journal. Okay? But the hidden message is such a bad paper. How dare you to submit your journal? So this is why you have to really make sure that your paper is good enough to be submitted. As I said, don't upset the editor from the very beginning. Step 2, finding external reviewers. Now, if the editor finds a paper is appropriate enough for the journal, he will identify 2 to 3 reviewers to look at your paper and determine if the content is appropriate enough. And this will take probably 1 to 2 weeks to find a person who is willing to review your paper. Remember, in most cases, external reviewer look at your paper without any payment. So it's a hard job without any payment. I've been contacted many times to review papers out of courtesy to serve the community, the academic community. I do not get paid for the reviewing process, even though you have to pay a big price for getting your paper published, but I don't get any payment. Third step, having external review comments. Once the external reviewers agree to review the manuscript, they'll be usually given 6 to 8 weeks to complete the review process, and then send his comments or recommendations to the editor. And step 4, making a decision. The editor assess the reviewer's comments, recommendations, and make a decision to accept or reject the manuscript. And this will usually take around 2 weeks. So this is the process of reviewing. And see, here is an example of my submission to a particular journal. As you can see, the journal I sent to is called the International Journal of Thinking Skills and Creativity. Okay? And I said we would like to submit the following article to the International Journal of Thinking Skills and Creativity. Well, you may wonder what the result is. No. It was rejected. And you may wonder what's the result of my submission. It was rejected. Now, what's the process of acceptance or rejection for a journal? Let us look at this process. Well, this is not for all journals. It depends on the impact factor of a journal. The higher the impact factor is, the harder it is going to be accepted. Let's just look at the process. First, the editorial's decision whether to let the paper to proceed further. or let the paper to be revised or to reject the paper. And the next step is the first review. The first review, and then to see the paper is good enough, or the paper, the writer could withdraw, or could decide to withdraw his submission. The next is the decision whether to revise further or to reject. So bear in mind, even if you've done the revisions, it does not mean that paper will be accepted. You may be required to do several rounds of revisions before it could be finally accepted. And then the second review, this time, if like 2 or 3 reviewers have different opinions, one thinks this paper is good enough, it deserves to be published on our journal, whereas another reviewer says, no, this is not good enough, we'd better reject it. The editor has to read the paper carefully and make his own judgment or decision whether or not to reject, to accept the paper. And then, having done this process, lastly is the publication stage. So every submission will go through this process. And whether or not your paper will be accepted or rejected will depend on the impact of the journal that you submit, or your target journal. If it is high impact factor, it will be harder to be accepted. So basically, this is a risk-taking process. You submit to a high impacted journal. If you get invitation to revise, then you get more influence of your publication on the journal if it's going to be eventually accepted. But if you send to a low impact level journal, you may get accepted, but you may not get such a influence in the field. So you have to learn to make your own decisions. All right, let's look at this process more specifically. Having read reviews provided by 2 or more members of the editorial board or team, the editor may have the following possible editorial decision. The first is accept with revision. And it really happens. Usually, the paper get immediate acceptance are those who are big coffee in the field. The second is acceptable with minor revisions. So, okay, the paper is good enough, but you still have to do some revisions. Fine, I'll do that. The third is major revision and reassessment needed. It means your paper touches on an interesting topic, or you have some innovative methods of study, but it is badly written. I give you a chance that you rewrite your paper and resubmit, and we have to do a reassessment. So I invite you to revise. It does not mean that you will necessarily get accepted. So you have to take this very seriously. Fourth, submission to another journal advised. Basically, is a rejection. But out of courtesy, I say, your paper touches on some interesting point, it has some good ideas, but it's not suitable for our journal. We recommend you try another journal. But to facilitate your resubmission, we have our reviewers' comments for you. And I hope you can revise your paper accordingly, and this will give you a better chance of getting your resubmission accepted. And the fifth, not suitable for publication. You know what happens? Because you touched the wrong journal. Oh, nowadays, a lot of our writers get this response, not suitable for publication on our journal. You think your topic is not so good. No, more than likely, it's your language. Your writing is not good enough. The title, the abstract already has mistakes, errors. You start upset the editor from the beginning. how about a chance you can expect him to accept your paper? So this is why I strongly recommend you to not write TBE, translation-based English academic writing, and also get native speakers to review your paper, to proofread. At least your paper is good lexically or grammatically. Language is good enough, and that's the next step. Okay, having said all of this, let's continue to explore the tips for selecting an appropriate journal. If you find the right journal for your manuscript, you can improve the chances of acceptance and of reaching out to your target journal. Here are some tips for you. First, select an appropriate journal. That means look for a list of journals before deciding which one is the most suitable to submit your paper. And next, as you select 5 or 6 journals, you would prioritize the list of the journals. And you want to see number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Make sure that the first 2 or 3 journals you target is suitable for your manuscript. Otherwise, if you submit all the journals, if you get rejections, you have no magazine or you have no journal to submit your paper because all the relevant ones have already turned you down. And it does happen. Now, some of my graduate students submit their work to all these journals and keeps getting all the rejections. And they get so frustrated, they get so anxious because there's no other journals that I can submit. Second tip is read aims and the scope of a target journal. That means to study the aims and guideline of your target journal. Make sure that your manuscript follow the guidelines given by the journal and pay attention to the format and style requirements. I've said this before, so I don't have to repeat, but I tell you, if you really want to submit to a target journal or desirable journal, make sure you would look through some articles published on the journal as the exemplary paper for you. And you would follow the same writing style. This is a quick way to ensure your acceptance. The third tip is looking through past issues of the journal. That means you have to look through the tables of content of the journal to find articles of your topic, and then read and cite these articles wherever appropriate. That means once you determine journal, you should read some of the articles first. And then you want to make sure your articles follow the same style or format. And not only that, see if you can cite some articles from the journal and make your article as a continuous study of the issues published on this journal. It will make your manuscripts look better. And then the fourth step is revise your paper to correspond to the relevant themes of the target journal. That means revise your paper to relate it to the relevant themes of the target journal. It means pay attention to those unaddressed or underaddressed issues or questions of the articles published on the journal. That means when you emphasize that of a particular article published on this journal, I found that's something that needs to be done further. And this is exactly what we did in our study. So present your manuscript, your paper, as a continuous chapter to the issue that are being addressed by the journal. Remember, in the previous talks, I talked about how you present your part articles as a chapter after another chapter. So what is called serial publications, and you can present your paper as addition to what has been done before. The fifth tips is to prepare a good cover letter. That would include the main themes of your paper, highlights the novelty of your paper, and justify the relevance of your manuscripts to the target journal. So it is as important to find a good journal as to write a good paper. Finding a good journal is very important. And what should be included in a cover letter? You should have editor's name, journal's name, title of your manuscript, article type, brief background of the study and research questions, brief overview of the methodology, major findings and significance of your study, corresponding author information, prior current publishing status, and a word of gratitude. This is what is normally included in a cover letter. And here I give you an example of a cover letter. And you can see, say we have anyone, it could be John Strong, okay? Name of the editor and wherever the person is, okay? And you say, I'm writing to submit a manuscript entitled Human Styles and Loneliness, a study among Hong Kong and Hangzhou undergraduates for your consideration of publication as a research article at your journal. We'll examine the relationship between human styles and loneliness among a sample of 334 Hong Kong and mainland students. Self-defined humor explained significant variance in both social and emotional loneliness for Hong Kong students, but only in the social loneliness for Hangzhou students. This could be attributed to the greater influence of Confucianism in mainland China than in Hong Kong. So this is like giving the major findings and the significance of the study. We believe that the findings presented in our paper will appeal to students and scholars of humor studies around the world, particularly for the role of a culture in use of humor in different social contexts. In so doing, we hope that our paper could advance people's understanding about the role of adaptive humor styles on controlling loneliness among young people, whether they're in China or elsewhere around the world. If you require any additional information regarding our manuscript, please do not hesitate to contact us directly via the resources below. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Dr. Try Hard, and whichever university is. Well, this is just an example of a cover letter. Okay, it has different components. I hope you'll keep in mind, and I hope this will appeal to the editor.